I bought an incredibly rare Sprint Blue Audi S4 with a manual transmission for just $5,000. In this video series, I'm tearing apart this cheap and very complicated German sedan in order to get it ready for a cross-country road trip. This is Audi's most tunable engine platform from this era, and I've always wanted to own one because of the incredible quattro all-wheel drive system and sweet supercharger noises. All of this comes at a cost though. A very complicated engine and driveline means these are far more complicated to work on than the seemingly simple Volvos that I'm used to working on in Los Angeles. Before we get into it, I want to say a quick thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Squarespace is an incredible all-in-one website building platform that I've been using for over 7 years. My website Wheelemsautorepair.com was made using a simple Squarespace template, and their commerce platform makes it incredibly easy to sell my merch and ship orders. I also use Squarespace to host a website for my photography portfolio. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can hit the link in my description for a 14-day free trial of Squarespace. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Wheelem for 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. With all that out of the way, let's rewind to when I first picked up this car in New Jersey. Here it is. This is my new to me Audi S4 that I just picked up for $5,000. There is a good reason that I paid just $5,000 for this thing. And in this video, I want to clean this thing up, give you a proper look around it, take it for a drive, and talk about my plans for this project car and bringing it all the way to Los Angeles across the country. But for now, let's clean this thing up because as you can tell, it's been sitting under this tree. It's extremely dirty. I want to start this thing up, see if the timing chains explode, and just see what I got myself into. Before we do anything too crazy with this car, I just want to give it a simple wash with the hose here to see what the paint looks like, to get rid of that parked under a tree look. Now it has been garage kept as far as I know. I know the exact garage that it's sat in its whole life. And so I think the paint on this thing should be really nice. I want to do a simple wash, and maybe when I get back to LA, we can do a full cut and polish on this paint because it is pretty pristine as far as a 15-year-old car goes. As you can tell, I don't have a sponge to wash this car, so I'm just going very lightly with some microfiber towels and a lot of soap, and it should be enough to clean this thing up until we get to LA. since I was, I guess, like 12 years old, I've seen this exact car sitting in a close friend's garage. And my friends were moving to Colorado recently and decided that they wanted to get rid of this car and leave it behind in New Jersey. So I decided to swoop in there, offer them $5,000, which was the Carvana offer. Now, $5,000 might seem like a great deal, but there is a lot wrong with this car, and we'll go over that in a second. But let me just give you a walk around this thing and show you just how nice this S4 is. It's got the little red S4 badge there. It's got different headlights, a different bumper, side skirts, different rear bumper. Right here you see the V6T badge, which stands for V6 supercharged, and the quad exhaust tips there at the back as well. When you open it up, you see a few more little details. S4 on the steering wheel, on the gauge cluster, on the door sills. It's really once you get in that it starts to give itself away a little more. Alcantara bucket seats, which look fantastic. And they say S4 right there at the top. It has true quattro all-wheel drive, a manual 6-speed transmission, which is extremely rare. And if we pop the hood, the real star of the show is a supercharged V6 3-liter engine that makes about 330 or 40 horsepower. This engine is one of Audi's most reliable engines if you keep up with the maintenance, which this car does not have. With a little bit of modification to the intake, this supercharger sounds exactly like a Hellcat, and it is fantastic. This engine is incredibly tunable, and you can be sure that we'll be doing some of that in the next couple of videos here, but we need to do a ton of work to this thing to really get it ready to drive across the country, which is a big ask of a sporty German sedan like this with 112,000 miles on it. But I say we take this thing for a drive, and then I'll tell you more about what it's gonna take to get this thing mechanically sorted and across the country. The main thing that blew me away immediately was the supercharged power band. This thing has torque absolutely everywhere because of the supercharger. Unlike a turbocharged car, the supercharger is belt driven, and so it creates boost for the engine at any RPM, 1,500 RPM right now, and it puts you back in the seat right away. As you can probably also hear, the tires on this car are about 10 years old. They desperately need replacing. Anyway, this thing is incredibly smooth. It sounds pretty good on the exhaust side of things. On the intake side of things though, it sounds fantastic, and I can't wait to get into that in a future video here. Let's do a little pull here, nice open road. First gear. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And somehow, on these 10-year-old winter tires, it has plenty of traction. It sounds so good too. I mean, it sounds like it could sound so good. Like it needs modifications soon, but you can hear the potential. Oh, yeah, this thing is great. I have so many project cars at this point, but if God didn't want me to have 4 cars, he wouldn't keep blessing me with these deals, because I think for $5,000, this was a fantastic purchase. In 2019, I set out with 2 friends to make my very first cross-country road trip, and to this day, this road trip holds a very special place in my heart. The car we took was my very first car. It was a 2012 Volkswagen Tiguan. But unfortunately, about halfway through the road trip, the timing chains on the 2-liter engine in the Tiguan let go, and it left us stranded in the middle of the Arizona desert. We had to abandon the car and fly home as the repair bill was way beyond the price that I even paid for the car to begin with. At the time, I didn't know much about working on cars, and since then I've spent countless hours and absurd amounts of money teaching myself how to work on these project cars, and my goal is to make this much more complicated Audi S4 road trip across the country with all the proper maintenance and have a bit of a German car road trip redemption arc with this project. I feel so much more confidence in my ability to fix these cars than I did 5 years ago, and I can't wait to fix this thing up, catch up on all of the maintenance that this thing hasn't had throughout its 15 years of driving. And I guess the point of this series is I want to redeem my ownership experience of my first car ever, which was pretty sad that it broke down just 10,000 miles into my ownership of it, and it was on a cross-country road trip. So I want to take this even more complicated German sports car, do all the proper maintenance to it myself, and take it across the country to Los Angeles. Looking in this engine bay, it's pretty clear that this thing is not going to be easy to work on. There's almost nothing that's accessible when you just immediately pop the hood. Even to work on the serpentine belt, you have to tilt forward the entire front end by removing the bumper cover and undoing the bolts that hold in the crash bar. Anything like the PCV system and the water pump, that's all going to require the supercharger to be removed, and we're going to tackle all of that in the next video. And this right here is all of the maintenance that's going to keep this Audi reliable. We've got a cabin air filter, injector seal, tons of fluids, EBC red stuff brake pads, a brand new water pump right here, serpentine belt and supercharger belt. This is an idler pulley for the supercharger. Ooh, look at this. A new engine mount. These Audi engine mounts actually have an electrical connector, which is kind of crazy. This is the PCV system. That's gonna be fun to get to. This right here is everything required to make a German sports sedan reliable. A huge shout out to FCP Euro for partnering with me on this and providing all of this for this series. It would not be possible without them. Every single part that you've seen me put on my various Volvo project cars was purchased by me through FCP Euro, and it is easily the best place to shop maintenance and upgrades for your German or European car. Please subscribe if you're not already. There will be a ton of videos coming on this car. We're gonna modify it, we're gonna fix it up, we're gonna drive it across the country. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.